my producer, Gene, is recording this one. Gene, are you recording?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Larry, we left off, talking about your career with intelligence. Walk me through your career.
Wait, say, what kind of what?
Walk me through your career.
Where to start, you know?
The transition from Wall Street to the CIA and intelligence.
They both kind of overlapped at the same time. In other words, I didn't stop doing one thing and then started doing another.
But were you on staff with the CIA, or were you a consultant?
No. Not like, on staff. If there was a project or somebody needed something done, then, I got asked to do it, and I decided that, it was something I wanted to work on and be involved in.
And so were you ever on the payroll? I'm just trying to understand whether this was a formal...
It's kind of, some things I just, not comfortable talking about with that terror. But as far as, if something was important to me, as far as what happened for Kosovo, say, right? That was important because it was, it's definitely in the interest of our country. And it was important to the Marine Corps because nobody wanted to end up in a war with Russia at the time. I don't know how much, you know about it or what you're aware of about that whole issue to begin with.
Were you a government agent?
No, more of a contract operative.
Got it. And so did you ever work for the Marine Corps?
I did some work for them because that's how I originally got to NATO.
Was this a volunteer basis?
Somewhat, yeah.
Were you ever paid for this work, or you were just brought in on a volunteer capacity?
No. I had my own, opportunities available to me. So, if I did it just at my own, will to do it.
How did you come in contact with so many influential people?
Think about that, but it's a hard conversation to have over the phone in these 15-minute calls.
I don't like it any more than you do, trust me. I know you must not.
I know you must not. Because
it's very hard to keep remembering where we left off. It's not fun.
Say that again?
It's not fun to have to remember always where we left off. So, how did you, if you had to just encapsulate it for me, how did you meet and form relationships with all these influential people and world leaders?
Well, it pretty much just happened. I mean, there was a lot going on at the time. Russia was very unstable, in the 90s. And, Russia was also, there were certain officials in Russia that were, more of the power base, people involved in the power base. And, back then they were trying to find their way. And they had their own issues going on. You had some competition, like the country, certain groups wanted to move forward. And then there's another group that sometimes referred to the old guard who wanted to go back to the Soviet Union.
Okay, so there are a lot of people who are experts at this particular crisis in that particular part of the world. Why do you think people turn to you? What was the skill set that you feel you brought to the table?
Because nobody else was able to get it done. Number one, they've been trying to, as far as in particular, specifically Kosovo, they were trying to end that crisis for a year, but it was very difficult. And it was not happening. It just didn't happen. And then, talks broke down, as I told you before, with Madeleine Albright and Ivanov. They ended up walking out on each other. And, the Yeltsin administration at the time didn't want anybody, Yeltsin directed all the officials and his cabinet members not to talk to anybody outside, and especially in the United States, about the Kosovo crisis at all. So, it was nobody had an idea of what to do, and I
And
did have an idea.
you?
What?
Who contacted you to get involved?
I spoke to like General Pittman, General Jones at the time.
And so, what unique skill set do you think you brought to the table?
I was very good at solving, solutions oriented, and I had the contacts. I mean, apparently I had the best, and most effective relationships that existed at the time. And
this call is from a federal prison.
You have to be aware that people here in the United States didn't even really have an understanding of who really had, what control over what, and in what, and how serious was that control? Was it significant? Was it weak? Was it marginal? Was it strong? Was it deep? So there were a lot of unknowns at the time.
I mean, obviously, you possess some kind of psychological abilities to, get through to people. I don't want to use the word mind control, but you were able to get people to do what you wanted them to do.
Please don't.
Those negotiations. So
Please
where did
don't.
you learn?
Please don't use that word.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like getting people to do what you needed them to do in those negotiations. Where did you learn those techniques? Or how would you even describe the techniques if I'm not using the good words? Like, how would you describe them? So it's your words, not mine.
Just really, having an ability to analyze the situation properly, know what's important, and know what what are the problem issues for, whoever you're speaking with, and if they can be addressed. I mean, you can't make it up. You either have an idea or, at least beginning with, at the very least, a concept of how to address what are problems to them, what are important problems to them.
So what did you do better than other people did?
Well, for one, nobody came up with a solution. The solution was mine. I am the one that came up with the solution. Everybody was kind of stymied because Serbia was the problem at the time, and Serbia was an ally of Russia. And Russia wasn't just going to was reluctant and not willing to just come out and go against their own ally.
And so where did you learn all those techniques?
Tara, couldn't tell you. I guess, just life experience, and just being able to solve things. Whatever I was able to do and say, it obviously resonated with the right people.
And then at this point,
but you have to be accurate. You have to be accurate, and it has to be, realistic, because otherwise you're never going to get a second chance again.
And what? So were you married at the time?
Yes.
At what point? Like, what caused your marriage to unravel in your eyes?
What caused my marriage to unravel? Well, for one, it just wasn't working out with my wife and I. We really didn't have a relationship, and my wife, I really wasn't a fan of how she treated Talia. There were certain things we just didn't agree with. Like, I'll give you an example. When Talia was very young, just running around, basically not in a walker anymore and being able to run around, but, really not having conversation yet. There was a point where my wife and I were watching something on the news, and Talia actually had her crayons and markers and ended up writing or scribbling all over the wall in the kitchen. Then she came in to get our attention to look at it. We went in and see it, and, my wife, I could see in her face, she got upset and was beginning to yell, and I put my hand up and said, please don't. her technique was to, scold Talia and thought it should be a punishable offense. I didn't. I embraced Talia, hugged her, and told her it was beautiful. And took it as an opportunity to teach her, okay, that's her wall. She could draw on it all
This call is from a federal prison.
but not draw on other walls. So it's just,
I think parents disagree. Parenting is hard. Married couples with young children struggle all the time. What caused your marriage to hit a breaking point?
Like I said, I think there was too much interference from my wife's family. That was one. I think that was a big issue. I would definitely. Thinking about it as you're asking, I would say that was probably the biggest contributor to what led to a cascade of just being on the wrong path, and that was it.
Okay, so there was no, so other than scolding Talia, there were no instances of abuse or anything like that you felt it transpired either to yourself or your children?
No, I didn't see that. I mean, I didn't agree with the way, she was with Talia at times. I mean, at other times she was very pleasant with Talia. I mean, it wasn't like, there's nothing I can point to say that it was, horrific that I've seen. But then I learned of abuse later. When Teresa got arrested, when we lived in Warren, and the next day, then Talia told me about the abuse, and it's, I was heartbroken. I mean, sad, very sad.
What type of abuse did she outline?
Excuse me?
What type of abuse did she outline?
Well, she got arrested for beating Talia. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
No, when was that?
That was in February 2005. I saw it. I couldn't believe it. Talia was sitting on a footrest holding Ava, and Teresa was screaming at Talia, standing in front of her. I was in the kitchen, but I had line of sight. And Teresa just started hammer punching Talia in the head. And I ran over and, separated Teresa from Talia and Ava. And Teresa just said, you know what? You're effed. You know what I'm saying? That's what I was waiting for. I'm calling the police. She called 911. She went to the front door. We heard the police came. Meanwhile, I was on my knees hugging both children, Talia and Ava, and trying to soothe them and just really, get over to surprise myself. I was really surprised to see that. And we heard the police come, or I heard the police come to the front door, and then a few minutes later, the sergeant comes in and says to me, Mr. Ray will be in to check on you and the children in a moment, but please don't come to the front door, anybody, because we're in the process of placing your wife under arrest. And then what we found out later was the wrong cops, the wrong officers showed up at the call. So it was supposed to be a setup where I was supposed to get arrested.
And so, but you said on the earlier part of our conversation, you hadn't witnessed any abuse. Was it until that point? But you did witness it at some point, like what you just
There were times where Teresa would yell with Talia. It was unreasonable, and I didn't like it. We disagreed on a lot, and it just kind of really separated from there. And I didn't like the way she really treated Talia at times. It wasn't all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
She ended up with my brother, right?
I did not know that. No, what happened? Are you there?
Did we lose
Hello?
him?
Yeah, it's only a
14
15-minute call, then it hangs up. Did we lose you, Larry? Gene, he'll probably call right back, okay?
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries.